Overthinking, stressing, replaying every scenario, trying to figure out what only God can fix. But let me tell you something today. The weight you're carrying is not yours to bear. God is already in the details. He's already in your tomorrow. He's already handling it. Overthinking is the enemy's trap, designed to drain your peace, your clarity, and your faith. But today, God is saying, let it go. I've got this. This message is for the weary mind, the heavy heart, the restless soul. It's time to stop trying to control everything and start trusting the one who already holds everything in his hands. So if you've been stuck in your thoughts, trying to fix what only heaven can resolve, this is your divine interruption. God is already handling it. Now breathe and listen. There comes a point in your life where you're going to have to admit the simple but liberating truth. You are not in control. And I know that's not easy to accept, especially if you're the kind of person who loves to fix things, solve problems, and stay 10 steps ahead. You like to plan, predict, and provide answers. But what do you do when all your planning doesn't fix the problem? What do you do when no matter how much you think, worry, or analyze, it still doesn't change the outcome? That's when you have to remember this truth. Your mind can't fix what only God can finish. We wear ourselves out trying to solve what was never meant to be our assignment in the first place. We overthink, we stress, we try to manipulate outcomes, all in the name of being responsible. But what if I told you that some of what you're carrying isn't responsibility? It's control disguised as worry. Let me remind you of this. If it's God's work, then it's not your weight. If God started something in your life, it is his job to finish it. Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 says, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." That means if he began it, he'll complete it. If he called you, he'll equip you. If he opened the door, he'll sustain you through it. But here's the problem. Too many of us are trying to take control of things that were never meant to be in our hands. You're losing sleep over something God already settled in heaven. You're replaying conversations, trying to make sense of something that only makes sense from a spiritual perspective. You've gotten stuck in the cycle of overthinking because you're trying to figure out. You're saying, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I don't have what it takes? But let me ask you, when has worrying ever changed an outcome? When has stress ever solved the problem? Worry doesn't produce solutions. It just steals your strength, it drains your joy, and it clouds your ability to hear God clearly. God never asked you to figure it all out. He asked you to trust him. That's what faith is. Not knowing all the steps, but believing God is in every one of them. That's what peace is. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of the one who has already solved them. So I need you to take a deep breath right now and say this out loud. God is already handling it. Say it again. God is already handling it. You don't have to carry the weight of the world. You don't have to solve what only heaven can fix. You don't have to stay up all night wondering how it will work out. If God started this, he will complete it. If he called you to it, he will bring you through it. You don't need to control the outcome. You just need to obey, trust, and rest. Remember this. Peace is not found in knowing every detail. Peace is found in knowing who your Father is. So stop overthinking. Stop replaying the past. Stop predicting the worst. God has already gone before you and is working even when you can't see it. So breathe, trust, and walk in peace because God is already handling it. How many nights have you stayed up replaying the same situation over and over again in your mind? What if it doesn't happen? What if I fail? What if everything I hope for just falls apart? Let me ask you something real. Has worrying ever made things better? Has anxiety ever improved the outcome? The truth is, worry doesn't solve problems. It just steals your strength. It wears you out. It leaves you drained. And here's the deeper truth. God never called you to figure it all out. He called you to trust him. But some of us are caught in the trap of thinking, if we just think a little harder, plan a little better, work a little longer, maybe then we can control the outcome. But that's not faith. That's striving. And there's a difference, a deep, life-altering difference between striving and trusting. Faith doesn't require full understanding. Faith says, God, I don't know how, but I trust you will. Let's go back to the story of Peter walking on water. He did the impossible, walked on the very thing that should have drowned him. Not because he had it all figured out, but because his eyes were fixed on Jesus. But the moment he looked at the wind, the waves, the storm around him, the moment he started overthinking, he began to sink. And isn't that just like us? Overthinking will always make you sink. Not because God failed you, but because you shifted your focus, because you relied on your own understanding instead of trusting the one who called you. Some of you are sinking right now, not because you're weak, not because you're unworthy, but because you're trying to carry something you were never meant to hold. You're carrying burdens that belong to God. And here's the truth, when you try to carry what only God can handle, it will crush you. It will overwhelm you. Why? Because that weight was never yours to bear. Someone needs to hear this today. Put it down. Stop trying to fix what only God can finish. Stop carrying a burden that heaven already lifted. You're not your own provider. God is. You're not your own protector. God is. You're not the one holding your future. He is. Well, breathe, let go, and choose trust over control. Choose rest over restlessness. Because the peace you're looking for doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from surrendering to the one who does. And he's saying to you right now, I've got this. Stop overthinking. I'm already handling it. Let me remind you of something that will shift your entire perspective. God is the author of your life story. And if he started it, he's faithful to finish it. That alone should help you breathe easier. But we struggle with that, don't we? Because deep down, we want control. We want answers. We want movement on our timeline. We feel the pressure of urgency, but God operates on eternity's rhythm, not earthly rush. So here's the truth. You need to shift your mindset. Instead of trying to fix everything, trust him. Instead of trying to control everything, surrender it. Instead of running through every possible scenario in your mind, remind yourself, God is already handling it. Let's bring it closer to home. What's that one thing you've been overthinking lately? That one situation you keep playing over and over, trying to find the perfect solution, the right timing, the best outcome. Right now, I want you to do something very simple but powerful. Take a deep breath and release it. Tell yourself, I don't have to fix this. God is already working. But it might not look like it. It might not feel like it. But faith is not about what you see. It's about what you know. And here's what you need to know. God has not forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. He hasn't left you to figure this out alone. He is already working. When Jesus was on the cross, he didn't say, you finish it. He didn't say, you go figure it out. He said, it is finished. And if he could complete the greatest work of all time, the work of your salvation, then surely he can finish the good work he began in your life. So stop overthinking. Stop trying to force what's already been settled in heaven. Stop wearing yourself out, trying to figure out what only God can fulfill. Your mind is powerful, but it was never meant to carry what only God can complete. Let go, trust him, and give him the space to do what only he can do. See, part of our problem is this. Uncertainty makes us uncomfortable. We want to know, we want clarity. We want full visibility before we even take the first step. But faith doesn't work like that. If you had all the answers, you wouldn't need to trust God. So instead of chasing clarity, start chasing confidence in God. Instead of demanding details, rest in the fact that the designer knows the whole plan. You may feel stuck right now. You may feel delayed. But delay is not denial. God is never late. His timing is perfect. And here's the powerful truth. When you stop forcing your plan and start trusting God's process, peace will follow. Because His plan is not rushed. His pace is not pressured. And His purpose will never be interrupted by your timeline. So breathe, trust, release. God's got this. His timing will always be greater than your urgency. Let Him finish what He started. We live in a world that tells us we need to have everything figured out before we make a move. We want answers. We want certainty. We want the full roadmap before we take the first step. But let me remind you of something profound. If you could figure it all out, you wouldn't need faith. If you knew every step of the journey in advance, there would be no need to trust God. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting God when you don't. Some of us have been paralyzed by the need for clarity. We keep telling God, I'll step out when you explain the plan. I'll obey once I know how this ends. I'll trust you as soon as you show me how it's going to work out. But let's be honest, that's not faith. That's control. And control is the opposite of trust. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 says, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Did you catch that? It doesn't say faith is confidence in what we understand. It doesn't say faith is assurance in what we can explain. Faith is about trusting in what we cannot see. There will be moments when you won't have the full picture. There will be seasons when nothing makes sense, when you don't understand what God is doing or why it's happening this way. But that's when real faith is tested. That's when you must lean on His character instead of your own understanding. And that's when you learn to walk by faith, not by sight. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave his home, his family, everything familiar, and go to a land that God would show him. God didn't give Abraham a full itinerary. There was no step-by-step blueprint, no visible map, just a promise and a call to obedience. And Abraham had a choice. He could have waited for every detail before he moved, or he could trust the one who called him. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 8 says, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place, not knowing where he was going. Did you catch that? He went not knowing. That's faith. That's surrender. That's trust. You don't need to solve it all. You don't need to control it all. What you need is to trust the God who sees what you can't see, who knows what you don't know, and who already holds the outcome in His hands. Let go of the pressure to have it all figured out. Let go of the illusion that it all depends on you, and take that next step, not because you understand it all, but because you trust the one who does. Faith is not about certainty in the plan. It's about confidence in the planner. And He has never failed. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and what God promised is your need to understand everything before you obey. But here's the truth. God didn't call you to understand. He called you to trust. Look at Abraham. When God told him to leave his home, his comfort zone, and go to a land He would show him, God didn't hand him a map. There was no full itinerary, no timeline, no GPS. Just one word, go. And Abraham had a decision to make. He could have waited for every detail, every answer, every reassurance, or he could take that first step into the unknown. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 8 says, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Did you hear that? He went out not knowing. That's faith. That's surrender. That's what trust looks like. Faith isn't about moving when you understand everything. It's about moving because you trust the one who gave the command. It's choosing to step forward even when the path ahead is foggy. It's believing that God knows exactly where he's leading you, even when you don't have a clue. But let's be honest. Many of us are stuck, not because God hasn't spoken, but because we're still trying to figure it all out. We're caught in cycles of overthinking. We say we're waiting on God, but really we're waiting on full clarity. We want control before we commit. But friend, that's not faith. Faith says, I don't know the outcome, but I trust God with it. Faith says, I don't see the full picture, but I'll follow his voice. Peter learned this on the water. When Jesus told him to come, he stepped out of the boat and he did the impossible. He walked on water. But the moment Peter took his eyes off Jesus, the moment he started overthinking, the moment he tried to make sense of what didn't make sense, he began to sink. And isn't that what happens to us? We begin in faith. We start strong. We believe God. We trust his promise. But then the wind picks up. The waves rise. The fear creeps in. And instead of focusing on the voice that called us, we focus on everything that could go wrong. We stop looking at Jesus and we start sinking into anxiety, into doubt, into confusion. Not because God failed, but because we gave our minds permission to control what only faith was meant to carry. So hear this today. Letting go is not weakness, it's faith. Letting go of control, letting go of the need to know, letting go of the fear that's been holding you back. Because God never said, figure it out. He said, follow me. And if you'll shift your focus back to him, if you'll stop staring at the wind and waves, you'll realize that the same God who called you out of the boat is the one who can keep you from sinking. He's not asking for your strategy. He's asking for your surrender. So take the step, even if you don't know what's next, even if the future isn't clear, because obedience is your job and outcomes are his. And you'll never know what God can do through you until you let go of the need to understand and simply trust. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's not about having the plan perfectly mapped out. It's not about knowing every step before you take the first one. Faith is about trusting the one who holds the plan. Even when you can't see a thing, it's saying, God, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I trust you. It's choosing to take the next step, even when your vision is clouded. It's believing that God is guiding your feet, even when you feel like you're walking through the dark. Some of us need to release the pressure of having it all figured out. We need to let go of the need to predict the outcome, calculate every risk, and control every variable. Because the truth is, you're never going to have all the answers. And that's okay. God does. So what if today, instead of stressing about the unknown, you started trusting the one who knows? What if instead of replaying every possible scenario in your mind, you started resting in the reality that God is already in your future? What if you stopped trying to fix it and started trusting that God already has? Faith doesn't mean you won't feel fear. Doesn't mean you won't have doubts. Doesn't mean you'll never whisper, God, are you sure about this? But what faith does mean is you don't let those doubts stop you. You move forward anyway. You take the next step anyway. You show up anyway because your trust in God is louder than the noise around you. Remember when Jesus told the disciples, let's go to the other side. He didn't say it would be smooth. He didn't say there wouldn't be storms, but he gave them a destination. And sure enough, a storm came, the winds blew, the waves crashed, and the disciples panicked. They thought they were going to drown. But Jesus, he wasn't worried because he already told them the outcome. We're going to the other side. Let me say it to you like this. The storm doesn't cancel the promise. The waves don't change the word. If Jesus said you're going to make it, then you're going to make it. He's not bound by what you see. He's not shaken by what you fear. He's not surprised by the storm. He's above it. So today, let go of the burden to understand everything. Let go of the fear that says you need to know what's next. Let go of the pressure to solve what only God can handle. And simply say, God, I trust you, even when I don't see the way. God, I trust because he already knows the way. And that's all you need. Let me remind you of something you may have forgotten in the middle of your storm. God already gave the word. You're going to the other side. The winds may be howling. The waves may be high. But that storm does not cancel what God spoke over your life. Jesus wasn't shaken when the storm came. He didn't panic like the disciples. Why? Because he already told them the outcome. We're going to the other side. That destination didn't change just because the weather did. The storm didn't rewrite the promise, and neither will yours. Maybe you're overthinking again. Maybe you're trying to calculate every possibility, replaying every scenario, waiting until everything makes sense. But let me tell you, you don't have to figure it all out. You just have to trust the one who already has. We live in a world addicted to deadline. By 30, you should own a house. By next year, you should be in a better position. And when it doesn't happen by our timetable, frustration creeps in. We begin to wonder, did God even hear me? We question the silence. We measure our progress by the world's schedule instead of God's perfect timing. But here's what I need you to hear. God's delay is not God's denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just because it didn't come when you expected doesn't mean it won't come at all. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. Not in your time, not in your schedule, not on your clock, but in His time. And His time is always right, always good, always purposeful. Some of you are weary, not because God isn't moving, but because He isn't moving fast enough for your liking. You've attached your peace to a calendar. But faith doesn't operate on deadlines. It operates on divine alignment. Maybe you're thinking by now, I should have been further. But what if God is protecting you? What if He's not rushing the process because He's preparing the promise? What if what you call waiting is actually God working beneath the surface? He's not punishing you. He's positioning you. He's not holding you back. He's holding you together. So stop measuring your progress by human timelines. Stop doubting God just because He didn't move on your schedule. His plan is greater. His timing is perfect. His vision is eternal. You may not be where you thought you'd be, but you are exactly where God needs you to be for what He's building next. Keep trusting, keep walking, keep believing. Because when God moves, it won't be rushed. It'll be right. And when He fulfills His promise, it will be more beautiful than you could have ever imagined. Let's talk about timing. Not yours, but God's. Because sometimes what feels like a delay is actually divine strategy in motion. Remember the story of Lazarus. Mary and Martha sent for Jesus because their brother was dying. They had a clear timeline in mind. They expected Jesus to drop everything and come immediately. But he didn't. Jesus waited, and in that waiting, Lazarus died. Can you imagine the heartbreak, the confusion? They must have thought, Lord, we called for you. Where were you? If only you had shown up on time, this wouldn't have happened. But here's what they didn't realize. They were asking for a healing, but Jesus had planned a resurrection. They wanted their brother to recover, but Jesus wanted the entire world to witness his power over death. If Jesus had come earlier, skeptics might have said, maybe Lazarus just got better. But when Jesus raised him from the grave 4 days later, there was no denying this was God at work. And maybe that's where you are right now. You've prayed, you've cried, you've waited, and now you feel like it's too late. You think if God was going to come through, he would have by now. But friend, what if the delay is not denial? What if it's divine preparation for something bigger than you even asked for? You see, we experience time one moment at a time, minute by minute, day by day. But God sees the whole picture. He's not just looking at your now. He's aligning everything, your heart, your character, your surroundings, for the right moment. Not just the soonest moment, but you call late. God calls on time. Think about Joseph. He had a dream from God, a vision of leadership, of greatness. But before that dream came true, he was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If anyone had a reason to ask, God, where are you? Why is this taking so long? It was Joseph. But every delay, every setback was positioning him for the palace. Because when the famine came, Joseph was exactly where God needed him. Not only to fulfill the dream, but to save an entire nation. So if you're in a season that feels like a delay, let me speak this over you. God is not late. He's setting you up. He's building your story into a testimony that will shake lives. Don't despise the process. Don't curse the wait. Don't assume silence means absence. God is working while you're waiting. He's preparing the stage for something greater than you've imagined. And when he moves, when the promise finally manifests, it will be undeniable that it was the hand of God all along. Now, furthermore, as God's followers, when the promise finally manifests, it will be undeniable that it was the hand of God. So hold on, stay faithful, trust his timing, because the delay is not wasted, it's woven with purpose. Let's go back to Joseph. The dream he carried was real, but so was the journey. He was chosen to lead, but not before he was betrayed, sold, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. And yet, all of it was necessary. Because if Joseph had been promoted too early, he wouldn't have been ready. If he had been released from prison a day too soon, he would have missed the very moment that aligned him with Pharaoh's dream. The timing of his rise wasn't a coincidence. It was divine orchestration. Sometimes God takes you the long way, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You may want the door to open now, but what if that door leads to a weight you're not yet built to carry? You may be begging for the blessing, but what if the blessing would crush you without the character God is building in this season? We serve a God who is not in a rush. He's not anxious. He's not scrambling to meet your deadline. He holds time in his hands. And while we're busy asking, Lord, why is this taking so long? He might be gently asking, my child, Why are you in such a hurry? What if your waiting is actually your training? With this pause, is God's preparation room for the very thing you've prayed for. Isaiah 40:31 reminds us, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting isn't wasted. It's where your roots go deep. It's where your strength is renewed, your vision refined, your heart matured. Even Jesus, the Son of God, waited. He spent 30 years preparing for a 3-year ministry. Think about that. If Jesus wasn't rushed into his purpose, why do we feel the pressure to hurry ours? So what do you do while you're waiting? You trust. You stay faithful. You keep believing. You don't give up preparation just because promotion hasn't come yet. Because when it's God's time, nothing can stop it. And when it's not God's time, nothing you do will force it to happen faster. God sees what you can't. He knows what you don't. And he's always working, even when it feels like he's silent. So instead of asking, when will it happen? Start declaring, God, I trust that you're preparing me. Instead of being frustrated by the delay, start praising him for the development. Because when God moves, it will be greater than you imagined, richer than you expected, and exactly on time. Maybe right now the pressure feels unbearable. You're exhausted. The weight is heavy. The responsibilities keep piling up. The battles don't seem to end. And you've whispered in your heart, I have to fix this. I have to make this work. I have to fight this battle on my own. But let me give you a truth that will set you free. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. You were never designed to carry this on your own. You were never asked to fight in your own strength. You're not your own provider, your own rescuer, your own deliverer. God is. Some of us are weary because we've taken on burdens God never assigned to us. We're trying to fix problems that only he can solve. We're swinging in a battle he already promised to win. No wonder we're tired. But today, let that weight fall off your shoulders. You were never meant to carry it. Let go of the pressure. Release the panic. Hand over the fight. Because the one who never loses a battle is standing right beside you. And he's already moving. In 2 Chronicles 20:15, God told his people, do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army. For the battle is not yours, but God's. The people of Judah were staring down a hopeless situation. Armies had surrounded them. From every human perspective, they didn't stand a chance. Fear could have paralyzed them. Despair could have silenced their praise. But instead of trying to figure out a battle plan in their own strength, they turned their hearts toward God. And God responded, you don't even need to fight this one. I've already claimed the victory. That's the word someone needs right now. You've been wrestling with a problem for too long. You've been carrying stress that was never meant to sit on your shoulders. You've been trying to control outcomes, fix broken pieces, and push through battles with everything you have left. But God is standing right there, whispering, why are you carrying that? That battle belongs to me. Here's the truth. When you try to fight in your own strength, you limit what God can do through his power. You're so busy strategizing, fixing, planning, and overthinking that you're not leaving any space for miracles to manifest. But when you finally surrender, when you say, God, this is too big for me, but it's not too big for you, something shifts. You stop striving. You stop manipulating. You stop trying to control what only God can handle. And in that moment of surrender, you make room for the supernatural. Sometimes the greatest act of faith isn't charging into battle. It's standing still and trusting that God is already moving. Think about David when he faced Goliath. The entire army of Israel was shaking in fear because they couldn't stop looking at how massive the giant was. But David, just a young shepherd boy, saw something different.